recording, and we're ready for Charlie.
And yeah, the mic is on. Gets better and better. Welcome to the monthly meeting of Apple CIDER, Rochester's Apple device user group. We meet the second Wednesday of every month at the Forum Room at East High School. The Saturday following the meeting, Bob Hoey hosts a Green Apples session at his home. If you're for beginners or anybody interested in exploring a particular topic, and if you're interested in going, his number's on the CIDER homepage. He'd appreciate a RSVP. And then that starts about 1 o'clock or 1:30, Bob? 1? Yeah. It starts at 1 o'clock and goes to 2:30, giving people time to get to the JCC for the monthly Q&A session with Steve at the JCC. You pretty much know all the stuff about how things work here. We have the Wednesday following the general meeting, we have a board meeting at Arundecoit United Church of Christ, and directions to that are also on the website. And on that subject, I would like to welcome Linda Danko to the board. She visited and liked it enough to come back, and we liked her and voted her in. Yeah, we appreciate her help. Tonight, we have, well, Steve is going to do iOS 11, and then Todd Bernhard is going to do keeping cloud costs and security in check, and Todd is with Cloud Checker. Are you going to do a Q&A before your keynote?
Yeah, and I may end up doing iOS first because Todd said he was going to be late.
Okay. All right. Are we good to go?
I think so.
Okay.
Everything zipping along. We're streaming. Oh, I didn't check the audio on the stream. Let me turn my volume up and see how bad we're echoing. We're getting a ground loop hum somewhere.
One more thing I'd like to mention is that Lyle has brought some things that he can. Can you do the dash for cash somewhere when it feels right in the course of the meeting? Okay. Holler when you're ready. This is a bag of stuff up here, right? Yeah.
That's grounded properly. Nope. We're grounded properly, but there's a ground loop hum on the audio. And I left my earbuds in the car. Okay. No, they're okay. Nah, the earbuds are at home because I have AirPods now, and they're in the car, but they're not paired to this computer yet. Alrighty. So let's start with I don't know, news. Probably some news. There have been a couple of updates in the Mac arena. The Mac OS High Sierra 10.13 had a supplemental update. It's not called, it's not 10.13.1 yet. And so one of the things we recommend to people is wait for the first patch to let them fix the bugs before you do your upgrade. Don't be the pioneer. What's this thing? You can always tell a pioneer by the arrows in their back. So unless you have a spare computer or you just really have to have the latest, we recommend waiting for the High Sierra 10.13.1 update just to make sure all the bugs are fixed before you upgrade. And also be very sure you have a full backup before you do the upgrade just in case something goes wrong. Yes. Thank you. It is on, but it is not visible. So I will turn mine visible. There we are. Now you can see me. Yes, Keith? Oops. Mm-hmm. Yep. Correct. High Sierra is an upgrade. It is not an update. Upgrades are major changes to the operating system. They're available through the App Store. So in your dock, there's probably a little one badge in your dock telling you there's an update or an upgrade available. Upgrades are generally the second digit, so we went from 10.11 to 10.12 to now 10.13 is High Sierra. I haven't loaded it yet myself. And so Apple's slogan is Sierra, your Mac elevated. So it's bug fixes, nothing major. We're going to have a full High Sierra demo next month, most likely. And most of the enhancements are under the hood to increase stability and performance, and there isn't very much user-facing. But with every upgrade, there is the potential for application incompatibility. We're already seeing disk utilities like Disk Warrior and what's the other one? Data Rescue. A lot of the disk utilities that technicians use are not compatible with High Sierra because High Sierra introduces a new file system that's much better than the old one. HFS Plus has been around literally for 20 years. It was released in Mac 8.1, and that was a really long time ago. So you should check with the manufacturer of any third-party apps. Apple apps generally get updated for the OS upgrade. There is a website called Roaring Apps that it's left over from when the Mac OSs had cat names. So it was Tiger and Lion and Mountain Lion. So it was Roaring Apps. So you can put in a program that you use a lot. Let's see if Disk Warrior is in here. Nope. All right, so let's do something like Photoshop. Put in a program that you use a lot, and it will tell you. So let's say I'm using Photoshop CS2, and it is not compatible with new OSs. And they don't even have any data on the newest OSs. So if you rely on Photoshop CS2, do not upgrade until you are ready to buy a new version of Photoshop. So that can be a big deal before you do your upgrade. With iOS, whoops, I lost my Apple page. I got that page twice, so we can do that. With iOS for the iPhone, iPad, and iPod Touch, the iOS upgrade does show in your system preferences under software update rather than in the App Store under app updates. So it's a little different in that respect. And we're going to be going over more of the issues with iOS later on and some of the new features. But it's the same sort of thing. It was an upgrade. It is new features. It is major changes to the underlying system. And you might have applications that aren't compatible with the new OS. Yeah, you'd emailed me a list that a lot of your apps are not. Or someone sent it to you. Yeah. Yep. And there's a way to see on the iDevices what applications you may have trouble with to begin with, so we'll take a look at that as well. iOS has been patched. 11.02 is the current version, and they have stopped signing iOS 10, so you can no longer go back to iOS 10 if you want to. So that's a thing to consider. If you upgrade to iOS 11, you cannot go back to iOS 10 anymore. So be sure you really want to upgrade in case you run into problems. Let's see, Mac OS 10, yeah, it's High Sierra. So the High Sierra supplemental update has come out, but not the 10.13.1 yet. And we'll talk a little more about that probably next month. Shut up. See if she works. Nope, not yet. So that was one of the new features in 10.12. There. I'm just trying to help. That Siri is now on the computer, and I accidentally nicked the Siri button. So the other things that have come out from Apple recently, the iPhone 8s are now fully shipping. Anyone get an iPhone 8 yet? Anyone waiting for an iPhone 10 and not going to get an 8? No. Todd's getting a 10. I'm wondering how many people are going to buy an 8 now because it's the newest one, and then in 2 months they're going to buy a 10 because it's the newest one, because the 10's not coming out till the end of October. We can't order it till the end of October, but it's not coming in till early November. One of the, actually several of the podcasts I've heard have talked about because there's going to be such a limited supply of the iPhone 10s, and they start at $1,000. One of the tricks is buy 2 of them, and then sell one on eBay, and it will pay for the first one and give you some extra money, because people will be willing to pay a premium over retail, especially outside the U.S., to get the latest phone. In fact, there have been problems in the past with the lines outside Apple stores. A lot of the people in line were being paid by usually Hong Kong investors, which is ironic because the phones are made in China, shipped here, then they get bought here and shipped back to Hong Kong. And people will just wait in line to buy them so they can resell them again. There've been some interesting things in the news that there haven't been massive lines at the Apple stores the last couple of phones, and some of the general press is saying that that means people aren't buying the iPhone as much anymore. What it actually means is when Angela Ahrens came in as head of retail, she didn't like the idea of lines. It means they're doing something wrong. We always liked waiting in line with talking to friends, and you see each other and it's a big party, but we get her point. And so what they do now, they're doing pre-orders. So you pre-order it on one day and it gets delivered to your house or delivered to the Apple store. You don't have to wait in line. And if you want it delivered to the Apple store, you can pick a time. So I want it to be there at 3 p.m. and I'll show up and pick it up. So you don't have to have a line to wait in to get your phone. And if you didn't, let me see, if you didn't order it the first minute it was available, which is, there we go, 8. It's available at midnight Pacific, is available for ordering. So you got to get up at 3 a.m. Eastern if you want to order it. If you didn't order it in the first couple of minutes, you now have to wait a couple of weeks to get it. With the iPhone 8, let me just pick one. Let's go for the 8 Plus. Let's max it out and see what we want. Let's go with T-Mobile. How about gold? That was the other thing. There's no rose gold anymore this year. That's just silver, black, and gold. And I'm going to pay in full for $9.50, and somewhere it should tell me delivery options. So October 17th. So it's only a week, which isn't bad. So the people are wondering, does that mean everyone's waiting for the 10? The people that would have bought the 8 to push the shipments out are waiting to buy the 10. Or did they just make more of them to be able to have? There has been a problem with I think it was 3 phones out of the how many, I forget how many they said they captured. About 3 or 4 phones, the battery has swollen and split the case. That's happened with several of the previous models. It even happens with old laptop batteries too. The watch, Apple Watch, is it Series 1, I think, or Series 2? Yeah, the Series 1 watch had a problem with the battery swelling. They're all still under warranty, so you get a free replacement anyway. But it comes down to the fact that people they're trying to cram more and more power into smaller and smaller spaces because people want longer battery life and more features. There haven't been any fires like Samsung had. One of the things with the Samsung phone that actually caught on fire is they think the battery was too big, and when they squished the phone together to seal it up, they actually put pressure on the battery cells to damage the cells, and that's why it caught fire and burst. With at least with the iPhone, it's separating the 2 case halves, so it's good the cases aren't sealed together as hard. Let's see, battery swell. Let me see if I can show you a picture of it. So it's sort of it's a tension release that the battery splits before it actually breaches and causes a problem. Yeah. Yeah. There has been some concern and criticism about that, the price differential between the different models. iFixit, the page we're on now, they tore apart the iPhone 8, so there's all the components in it. But what it doesn't, in fact, there's more pictures up above, so there's the battery. The complexity of the circuit boards, there's always some company, excuse me, that will look at the components inside the phone and say, yeah, it's $300 in parts, and Apple's charging $700 for it. Well, that doesn't account for the $100 billion in R&D they spent to make the first. So it's like anything. The first one costs $1 billion. The second one is 10 cents. Right. Now with the iPhone, yep, with the iPhone 10, it has a different display technology. It's what's called an OLED display instead of an LCD display. And the OLED displays are, in general, brighter and sharper and better color to them, but they're much more costly to make, and the yield levels are very low. From what we hear, there's like a 30 or 40% failure rate right off the production line where they have to throw them away and start over. And a lot of the higher-end televisions are using OLED displays now instead of LCD. And you know, that's the $10,000 Samsung 60-inch TV because it uses OLED. The picture is fantastic. The Apple Watch uses an OLED display because it's small. Yeah, Sony is making the OLED. True. Yeah. So there are more companies coming online to try to make OLED displays. There's actually a story about Foxconn, which is one of the largest electronics manufacturers in the world. They have struck a deal with the state of Wisconsin to build a $3 billion OLED fab in the state of Wisconsin. And some of the criticism is that the state is giving them millions of dollars in tax breaks over, what they say, over a 25-year period. And it's extremely unlikely the plant's going to last more than 5, maybe 10 years before the technology is radically outdated and it doesn't work anymore. So they're a little concerned about what's going to happen. It's great for the state, and then they say they're going to get several thousand construction jobs, but once the plant is finished, it's all going to be robots. So you need the sort of the menial construction or factory workers have mostly been replaced by robot assembly. So now you need a higher education level to be able to program the robots. Governor Cuomo did a speech a few months ago in a factory in Buffalo where they were talking about that. And this factory builds robots that build other things, and said, that's one of the reasons they talked about the Excelsior grant in New York, is they want kids to go to college to get those higher level skills, because that's where the jobs are going to be in probably the rest of the market. Yeah.
Just to add a little bit to that, number one, I don't think anybody can justify Apple profits.
Well, if you're an Apple shareholder, you love the 30% gross margin.
Right, absolutely. But the other thing that you touched on, as they shrink the electronics, the big issue is yield.
Yep.
Very easy on some of these high-density integrated circuits, especially when they first start production, they may even run 10% yield. So, although the ones that work will look at it and say the material in it doesn't justify the cost, low yields, especially until they get to the bugs out of the production cycle, definitely make that production cost higher.
Yep. And that's also one reason to hold off on buying a new device. Wait for the bugs to be found, wait for revision 2, or just wait for a few months for the second production batch if you don't have to have the latest version. So this is the iPhone 8 logic board, just one side of it. The other side is just as densely packed with chips as this one is. Yep. There's an X-ray. One of the things Apple did, we think in so there was the picture of the swelling and the cases are separating. In order to I don't know what the word is to reach more of the market, they're still selling the iPhone SE starting at $329. No payments, full price, flat out, no contract, no nothing, $329. And then the iPhone 10 at the very high end, maxed out with everything in it, is $1150. So they're still selling the SE, the 6S, and the 7, in addition to the 8 and the 10. So there's an iPhone in any budget. So one of the things they have done in the last few years is they keep last year's model to be at a lower price, and this year they're keeping 2 years ago model and 3 years ago model in order to keep the prices down. It still runs iOS 11, and the latest has almost all of the latest features, but it's a less expensive iPhone. And so that's one thing. It still isn't the $15. I was looking at Walmart the other day, and there's an Android phone for $15. And what the heck is it made of that they can build it for $15? And that's all the component costs and the profit. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Yep. Yeah. Well, in fact, if you know the videos where they're getting ready to land on the moon, they keep calling out a 1201 error and a 1202 error. That's a buffer overload. There's too much data coming into the computer that their 16K of solid state memory couldn't handle it. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's what a lot of people think. If we hadn't given up, space flight would be so routine now that, and we would have a colony on the moon. In fact, Elon Musk named his moon base Alpha after the 1980s, the Space 1999 TV show with Martin Koenig and Martin Landau and Barbara Bain. And so Moonbase Alpha, that was kind of a neat touch. But yeah, a lot of people think that if we hadn't given up, then we would be a lot farther than we are now. One of the things we've heard is that there's no enemy anymore. We went to the moon to beat the Russians. In fact, Kennedy, there's some tapes that have surfaced of Kennedy talking to the NASA people, because in the early days of NASA and the moonshot, there were a lot of early failures. And Kennedy said, if we can't beat the Russians to the moon, I don't really care much about the moon. Stop doing it. And apparently we barely beat them. They landed an unmanned probe the next day, I think it was, after Apollo 11. But because we made it first, they in essence canceled their moon program, and they were never going to the moon in the first place. No, we're not going to the moon. So it wasn't a space race. But yeah, so the iPhone 8 is available now. The iPhone 10 is missing. I closed it already. iPhone 10 you can order the end of the month, and it will be available in early November. Well, the 8 and the 10 both have a glass back, because one of their features is wireless charging. So you don't have to plug the cable into charge. You just set it down on the charging pad. So it can't have a metal back, or that would block the magnetic signal that's doing the induction charging. Now, a lot of people might remember the iPhone 4, I think it was, had a glass back to look cool, and it broke all the time. So now when you drop your phone, you don't have just the front glass that can break. You've now got the rear glass that can break. So one of the things we like to recommend at our store is get the AppleCare Plus. It's like $100, $120. And that gives you 2 accidental damage claims. So it's $29 to replace your screen instead of $200 to replace your screen if you drop it and break it. And it gives you 2 years of warranty instead of the standard 1 year. But that is something people have been worried about when it was announced that it would have a glass back. So far, we haven't heard of any major issues. There have been the typical YouTube destruction videos where someone buys a phone just to destroy it, shoot it with a high-power rifle, or there's the Will It Blend guys that always put it in their industrial blenders, and it's always a shame to see them destroy these phones when someone else would gladly have bought it and be using it. But if you don't absolutely have to have the latest model, then it's not a bad idea to wait a month or so to see how it shakes out, see what problems there are, see what's fixed before it actually comes out. Sure, but if you put it in a case, the case has to be magnetically transparent, so that the induction charging can work. And pretty much any company that makes an iPhone 8 case is going to make sure it will work. Apple has already said their own cases do work. In fact, the iPhone 7 cases will fit the iPhone 8, and those cases are all capable of the magnetic charging. The other thing that came out was the 4K Apple TV. The Apple TV is a little black box that allows you to connect your computers to your television wirelessly. Am I not getting? Oh, I am not getting it because I have the wrong button. So what you were just going to say, yeah, I got to turn that one off and turn this one on. It only does one Safari window or the whole screen. So every time I make a new Safari window, it didn't work. All right, so 4K. So the Apple TV is a little box that lets you connect your computer to your television wirelessly, your iPhone, your iPad. So anything you have on your device, you can send up to your television, which means, we'll talk about that later. Which means that, like, your photos, you can see on your big screen TV. Games you play on your iPhone or iPad, you can see on the television. You can use the television as a second monitor. So that's a neat way to connect your devices to your television. It also makes your it makes a dumb TV smart by connecting it to the internet, and it can make a smart TV smarter by giving it more options and more choice. And so the latest Apple TV runs 4K resolution and high dynamic range video. The previous Apple TV is only HD. So a lot of you might remember the standard definition SD to HD jump. Well, now we're going from HD to 4K, which is twice the resolution. We could call HD 2K. Well, it's twice in each direction. So it's 4 times overall, 4 times as many pixels. And we're also seeing some 8K TVs at the ridiculously high end, in the $100,000 range. You can get an 8K TV. The problem has been there's no 4K content, or very little 4K content. So it doesn't do much good to have a 4K television if there's nothing to watch in 4K. And so some of the 4K TVs will actually come with a high definition, either a high definition Blu-ray player or a hard drive. I know Sony was doing it for a while. They were including a hard drive with some of the Sony movies on it in 4K. So you would have something to watch at 4K. But now we're seeing Netflix and Hulu and some of the internet video content sources are coming out in 4K. And the neat thing with the Apple TV is you may be able to cut down on your cable TV bill to watch things on the internet. So you can watch TV shows on the internet through the Apple TV. Let's see, I think there's a button here of the apps. You can get different apps. So you get the USA app and watch USA shows like Mr. Robot. Get the NBC app and watch what is that? The one about the store. I don't remember the name of that one. Superstore. Yep. iTunes. You can buy and rent movies and TV shows. CBS, the jerks. You can only watch Star Trek Discovery on their internet app. You cannot watch it on broadcast yet. We expect it's going to come to broadcast eventually. It is on Netflix. So Netflix outside the U.S. So that's their distribution deal. In the U.S., it's the app. Outside the U.S., it's Netflix. So you can watch TV shows from different networks on the Apple TV and cut down on your cable bill, not have to buy all the TV channels on cable. Many of the channels are free, and many of them also, like Showtime and HBO, they're cheaper to buy on the Apple TV. I think HBO is $15 a month if you buy it on the Apple TV, and $20 a month if you buy it on Time Warner. And one of the things you can do with binge watching, you pay your $15, get the HBO Now app, watch all of Game of Thrones in that month, and then cancel it. So you don't have to keep paying for it. We run into a lot of our customers that have several movie apps because there might be something on that one channel that one month, and they're paying, we've seen bills over $300 in television content. So by watching it on the Apple TV, you can cut a lot of that down. And so now with the 4K Apple TV, what Apple has done is they have gone to the movie studios. I think it'll say that somewhere. Let me just go up to the top again. And with the movie studios, you can get the 4K version of a movie for free if you bought the HD version. So it used to be that, like the SD version was $10, the HD version was $20, and if you try to buy a 4K DVD, it's usually $30 or $40. So there has been typically a much higher price for 4K. Apple was able to get the studios to throw in the 4K version when you buy the HD version online, so that you have something to watch on your 4K TV. The other option that might be even more important than the 4K, because there's so little 4K content, is the HDR. HDR, or high dynamic range, gives you much brighter, much crisper, much sharper images, especially in the different color gamuts that it can display. And so they show a 4K version versus a 4K HDR. And the HDR is just sharper, there's more detail, there's more variation in the colors. In fact, does the projector? Yeah, the projector doesn't really do it much good. This is only an SD projector. It's not even HD. And during the keynote, they actually said that they put in a cinema quality 4K projector in the theater so that they could show off how good the Apple TV works. They are still selling. Let's see. Yeah. So with the 4K titles available, Netflix has been producing 4K content for a while. So if you have a 4K television already, Netflix already has some 4K content. Siri now, you can say find movies in 4K, and it will. Another big thing they're offering, and one of the typical problems there has been with internet-based television, is live news and live sports. It's great to be able to watch a TV show, but if you want to watch the game, you generally have to have the broadcast app. So now Apple is working deals with the different sports networks and probably ESPN, so that you'll be able to do live news and live sports on your Apple TV, which is another way to cut even more channels off your cable TV bill. They showed off, I don't know if they have a picture of it here, they showed off a selector. So when you go to the selection page about which game to watch, there was a grid of like 16 games. All of them were live. So if you didn't mind watching them a little tiny, you could watch 16 games at once. Yeah. Yep. Invented at Kodak. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. So if you have a bright foreground, you need one setting. If you have a bright background, you need a different setting. And until now, one setting didn't work for all of it. But with HDR, it'll take both pictures and merge them together. Yep. They also updated the Siri remote. A lot of people complained about the remote because it's too symmetrical. when you're fumbling in the dark, you can't see what side you're working on. And so if you have it backwards, you're tapping on the bottom of it instead of the touchpad. They have now added a raised white rim around the menu button so that it looks different and it feels different. So you'll be able to feel it. I've never had a problem with it because there's almost always enough light coming from the TV. Even if all the room lights are off, I can pick it up and see it. But yeah, that's there now. And so everything bigger, better, faster. One of the neat things is now with your photos and AirPlay that you can see all of your photos on the big screen. We joke in the olden days where you had your wallet with 10 or 12 pictures of the family in it, or you had one of the accordion things that came out. Well, now you've got all your 50,000 photos on your Apple TV to show on the big screen to inflict upon people. And one of the new features they have in the new version of Photos is a better memories feature where it automatically makes slideshows for you. Things you did last weekend, last month, what you did on a certain day. So really neat automatic slideshows that you can have displaying on your television. They've updated the Home app. So for home automation, you can control your lights or your garage door or thermostats with home automation. We're probably going to do a seminar on home automation soon too, as soon as more devices come out that are compatible with Apple HomeKit and available on the market. The nice thing about the Apple TV is the old version is still available. So with the new, that's just the new one. Where's the old one? There was a compare button. I missed it. The previous generation Apple TV is now, there we are, is now $150. Well, still $150, but it comes with the new remote. And $180 gives you the 4K model with 32 gigs of storage. And then $200 gives you the new 4K model with 64 storage. The storage is kind of an interesting thing. There isn't much need for storage other than caching movies. If you tend to watch a lot of movies over and over again, then it will store them in the cache on the Apple TV storage drive and not have to download them again. So that's especially good for kids who like to watch the same movie over and over and over. How many times did we watch The Lion King when Matthew was young? So that stores it in the cache. So there's probably no reason to get the 64 gig model unless you do a lot of movies over and over again. But it's only $20 cheaper, so you might as well. Yeah. And so that gives a nice option, especially for cable cutting, to be able to cut down on the amount you're paying for cable television and just use cable internet for everything. All right, Apple Watch. Anyone get the new Series 3 yet? There was an issue with the Series 3 Apple Watch. There was a LTE issue where it wouldn't connect to cellular consistently, and they have fixed that with a patch. One of the things different on the Series 3 is that there's a red dot on the end of the stem, or the digital crown. So that's the way you can tell that you have a Series 3. So you can always show off your red crown to tell people you've got the Series 3. Big difference in the Series 3 was they added cellular, so now you don't need to have your phone with you in order to make and receive phone calls. They talk about people running or jogging. You can leave your phone at home and not have to have that weight of the phone on you. During the keynote, they made a phone call to a woman, and then the camera panned back, and she was actually paddle boarding in the middle of a lake or something, making her phone call. Maybe it looked a little calm for the bay. So Series 3 coming out, and more bands available. Well, that's a big question. None. With most of the carriers, and it depends on the carrier, with most of the carriers, it's $10 additional for another device on your plan. So a lot of carriers will have a plan where it's $10 to add your tablet to your phone plan, and then you share the same amount of data you had before. And that does suck. You're adding a device but not getting any more data. So what usually happens is if you use the cellular features of it a lot, you may end up needing a bigger data plan, and we think that's why they're doing it. So you got to pay $10 a month to have the device, and then you'll probably end up paying more for a higher data plan too. But if you don't use it for phone calls a lot, then you may not use any more data. So it's for all your cell phone plans. Take a look at your data usage. Look at your bill. Go onto the online billing information on your cell phone. See how much data you're using versus how much data you're paying for. So if you're paying for a 20 gig plan and you're only using 5 gigs, you could cut your bill down by cutting down your plan. However, if you keep having overages, then you might want to go to a bigger plan. Yes, you still need an iPhone to set it up. It will have the same number as your iPhone, but your iPhone doesn't have to be with you all the time. It can operate independently of your phone. So I suppose you could give one spouse the phone and one spouse the watch. But
The same number as your iPhone, but the carrier will still charge you an extra $10.
because it's a second device.
Interesting, because currently, like if I add this, it's going to have its own number.
Well, yes. So if you have a cellular capable iPad, it gets its own phone number. It can have its own separate data plan, or you can add it as another device on your existing plan. Most of the carriers are $10 per device per month. With the cellular iPads, if you don't use the cellular much, you can turn it on for a month, turn it off for 6 months, turn it on for a month. Yeah.
Or just use your hotspot.
Or use a hotspot on your phone, yeah. I don't know. That's up to the carrier. So if you have an iPad cellular, I don't know if you're going to add the... Oh, grandfathered into that. They'll probably charge you the $10 device, but they may not... actually, they probably won't because that plan doesn't exist anymore. That was the big thing that we always hated when we sold phones. Someone would come in and that plan doesn't exist anymore. You have to go to this other plan. So you can't upgrade your phone unless you upgrade your plan for more money. So yeah, they probably say, well, that unlimited plan doesn't exist. You can't use that, so you have to go to a new plan. Alrighty. Anyone else have any news that they knew about or didn't know about? There is a caveat that I don't know, shortcoming, a feature we hate in iOS 11 that we'll talk about when we get to it. Animated emojis are coming with the new iPhone 10. They've updated their hot news page. That's nice. The future is iPhone 10. There was a supplemental update that came out, but it's not called 10.3.1. I'm not sure how to tell it. Well, yeah, it could. If you go to the App Store and check for updates, when you check for updates, it will show you the updates recently installed. So that supplemental update should be there, or it may. Let me see. It may only be for the newer computers. No, I got it on my 2012 Mac Mini. So you may have to go to the App Store to get prompted for it, or it should be there. It should be in the App Store waiting for you. You may have your preferences set to not check for updates. In System Preferences, under App Store, you can tell it to automatically check for updates, and then when there's an update available, you can choose to be notified or to have it install automatically. And I don't want it to install these things automatically because this is a demo machine. And there have been times when an update installs in the middle of a demo and it forces you to reboot. So it may be you have your automatic updates turned off, or it may be that you haven't. My mic keeps drooping. It may be that you haven't checked for updates recently, but it might be there. I don't. Just skimming through here, I think it was for every Mac running High Sierra. It wasn't based on the Macs. Oops, that was the wrong one. There's iPod coming up later. Alrighty, any other news, or shall we move into some questions? Or did we answer all the questions too? Question or Frank?
Yeah, I was trying to, I downloaded a video for M4B.
Mm-hmm.
And try to play it to entice directly to CIDER Mac.
Yeah.
Look at it. Is there no way around other than doing that, or is
So when you download videos, those videos are created in a in what's called a codec, a compressor decompressor, and some companies create videos in weird codecs that aren't the standard MPEG, Motion Picture Expert Group standard codec, probably to avoid paying them royalty fees. And so you frequently get you can get videos that are in a different format that have different codecs, and DivX is one of the other formats. There is a DivX player for Mac, but one of the better players is the VLC media player from Videoland at videoland.org, and VLC will play almost anything. There's a I'll let George take a picture first. Got it? They have a list of formats somewhere it uses, and it is just immense on how many video formats it can actually use. There we go. So that's usually where I go to watch a weird format. Here we go. So there's a list of a lot of the different formats it plays. So there have been problems. Well, just like any software, there's been problems with the DivX player where vulnerabilities were found and they needed to be updated. Same thing with VLC, pretty much any software, but at least they do really good about getting it updated. They also have an iPad app that will let you play those weird videos on your iPad that you download from random websites. Most of the big websites are using H.264 or MPEG-4, the more popular video standards, and you don't need anything extra, but occasionally you run into a weird video that needs something extra. And in most cases, the VLC player will do it. Yep, there's a program for converting video files. There's a lot of programs out there that are almost the same program. They're a wrapper around an open source program called FFmpeg, which is the open source common program for converting video formats, but it's command line, so general people don't want to use it. There is a free program called MPEG Stream Clip. Can't say that very fast, and that will convert almost any format into almost any other format. And it's free. You don't have to pay for it. A lot of the video converters. So if you like search for video converters, you'll find dozens of video converter programs that are almost identical, at almost the same price, and they look almost identically the same because they pretty much are. In fact, we've seen some companies will package the same program under 5-10 different names just to get more search hits. So this is from Squared 5. There's a Mac. Bless you. There's a Mac version and a Windows version, and so that will convert from one format to another format. Crap! I just forgot the name of the other one with the pineapple logo. Handbrake. Handbrake.fr, they're still at. Handbrake is another video format converter. Converts from any format to just about any other format. It also has the added feature of being able to convert a DVD into a computer playable file. So you can rip your DVDs and watch them on your iPad if you want. Currently, the Digital Millennium Copyright Act says that is illegal, but the Librarian of Congress has said it's okay to rip DVDs you actually own. And so there's a conflict in the law. One part of the law says it's okay, one part of the law says it's not. But this is also a way of converting DVDs and converting video formats, especially if you're going to watch it on an iPhone or an iPad. As this screen will toggle around, they have built-in presets to be able to play it. There it is. So you can play it on different size TVs or on different devices and easily convert the video from one format to another. And it's also handy now for computers that don't have CD or DVD drives in them. You can convert a video on one computer that has one and then watch it on your other devices that doesn't. All right, Rick, I think you were starting a question? A container. Well, I'm not quite sure what container you might be referring to, but there is a container package that applications come in now. So when you develop an application, it used to be you had your actual application file, and then you had a bunch of supplemental files, the help files, the fonts, things like that, all the things that came as part of that application, and they all had to be installed in the right folders in order for that program to work properly. Somewhere along the way, I forget where packages came out, Apple started this package concept. And so now, when you look at an application icon, it looks like one icon, but it's actually a package. And we can show the package contents and see all the pieces of that package. In fact, Todd can probably answer this better. Hi, Todd. So packages contain the code, the resources, the fonts, the windows, the icons, all bundled together in one looking icon. And so that gives you a way to install a program just by dragging it onto your computer, and to delete a program just by dragging it off your computer. So you'll probably notice a lot of Mac installers don't actually have an installer. You just drag the file. And when you want to uninstall it, you just drag it to the trash. You don't have to scavenge through your hard drive looking for all the extra files they threw in order to uninstall it. Was that sort of what you were talking about? No. That's more virtualization. Yeah. Sure. Because cloud servers probably do that quite a bit. In fact, we just had a customer come in today with ransomware. It was a really good one. It was mimicking the Apple website. It had the right header, the right footer, the wrong phone number to call. And when we looked at the code, it was coming from CloudFront, which is an Amazon container service for serving websites. So the bad guys are now buying web space from Amazon. So wait until they find it, and then right, they probably stole someone else's Amazon account. Yeah. Alrighty. That one I don't want to delete because we're going to talk about that later. Any other questions, Charlie? Yep. No. So, well, you want to back up your iDevice before you load the iOS update or upgrades, just like we talked about with your Mac. Make sure you have a backup. There's two ways to back up your iDevice. You can back up to iCloud right on the iDevice itself, but then you probably will need to buy more storage space at Apple. Apple only gives you 5 gigabytes free. If you have more than that, you need to buy more. It's not too bad. 99 cents a month gives you 50 gigabytes to do your backup with Apple. The biggest advantage with the iCloud backup is it's automatic. Whenever you plug your phone in to charge, it automatically backs up while you're connected to Wi-Fi. The other way to back up is to use your computer and connect it to iTunes. And iTunes will do the backup. By default, iTunes backs up to your internal drive. You can then move that file to an external drive if you want, but by default, it will always back up to the internal drive. iPad to computer, using iTunes on the computer to do the backup. Correct. So if you want to restore that backup, you have to move it from the external drive back to the internal drive in the iTunes backup folder. Theoretically, you could make a link. It's an under mobile. The backup folder is a hidden folder in your library. Mobile. I haven't backed up one, so I don't have one. Here it is, Mobile Sync. So here is an iDevice backup. Oh, I don't remember I backed up a device to this computer. So it's hiding. The backup folder is hiding in your library, and theoretically you could make a link to that on an external hard drive to have it automatically back up to the external drive, but that's tricky. So you back up to your internal drive, then copy the backup file. Carol? So how many backups does it keep is the question. Theoretically, it only keeps one backup, but we have seen cases where it thinks so let me cancel. So I went to iTunes, go to Preferences, go to Devices, and so here it backed up the same iPad twice. Oh, I did my mom. Okay. It didn't delete the old one to make the new one. I don't know why. So I could delete the old one myself to make room for the new one. But we have seen cases where someone has like 5 or 10 backups. Sometimes it's a different phone. So when you upgrade your phone, now it's a different phone, so it makes a new backup. This case, it was the same iPad, but a different OS version. So that could also be why it's duplicating. One's OS 7, one's OS 9. But that can be a place where your computer is using a lot of storage, especially on a laptop now with the SSD drives being relatively small. So if you go to the Apple menu and choose About This Mac, one of the buttons is Storage. If you have something that says, now it's going to calculate how much space you're using. If you have a huge button that says Other, that probably means you have a lot of iDevice backups eating up all your space. Yeah, Lyle.
And also the question in terms of different versions of backup. If you're backing your device up through iTunes on your computer, and you're backing up the computer with a time machine,
Yep.
then you can go back to an earlier date time machine and have an earlier version of the backup of your device.
Right, so Time Machine is backing up your computer, so you'll have multiple backups that way too. It does, yeah. So if you install High Sierra on an SSD, it only runs APFS only runs on an SSD so far. Then it will convert it automatically. So that may take some extra time. And because it's doing the conversion of your hard drive into a completely different file system, that's another real big idea to have a backup. Probably won't break, but it could. Alrighty, I think we'll probably take a break for a few minutes. We are being attacked by an asteroid as we speak. Asteroid 2012 TC4 is approaching. It's going to get within 31,000 miles of us, which is almost to our geosynchronous satellites. It's well inside the orbit of the moon. Our geosynchronous satellites are 25,000 miles. And so it may have already happened. Well, no, I thought it was 8 p.m. Eastern. So that's what my my alarm was set for. So yeah. So yeah. So SLU is so it's already happened. The countdown is 0. SLU is a public telescope that you can watch and control. You can ask it to point someplace, and it can. But they do a lot of public shows and public viewings. Yeah, 7:59 p.m. But what time zone was it? Well, no, it's 8:06. So it already went past us at 8 o'clock. Yeah. Oh yeah, sure. If you have unused computer-related items that you want to donate to the club, we have a dash for cash. And
so it's been quite a while since we've had one of these. You're going to see that they're pretty safe items tonight. Quite often they're electronics, and we say, buyer beware. We haven't tested them out. You usually get it at a deep discount, but it doesn't come with a guarantee. Pretty safe tonight. Our first item are CDs. Now you're saying, CD? Why would I want a writable CD? The thing only holds a paltry 700 meg. Remember when that was a big number? But quite often there are files. I mean, 700 meg is still a lot of data depending on the information you have. You may want to archive it. There are a number of excellent things you want to do with that. This is a package that started with 50. I'd say it still has 45 in it. I'm sure this will go at a very safe price. But let's start it at $5. $5? CDs?
cash, credit, or
cash,
check.
credit, or
Check. Cash, check, or credit, I guess is the order.
Okay, we have 5 over here. Do I hear 6?
Makes a great way to give files to someone without worrying about the cost of getting a hard drive.
Absolutely, and these aren't floppies. These have a lot more than the old floppies have. So going once at 5, going twice, sold to that fine young man over there for 5. Now, if you liked that, wait till you see what I have that goes with it.
Ooh,
Cases.
Jewel cases.
So these are jewel cases, and these are very flexible. Not only will they hold CDs, these will also hold DVDs. One in each of these. I didn't look at the actual. Yep, this started at 40, and I'm guessing that there's somewhere between 39 and 40 still in this package, and they're all in good shape. So let's start this one also at 5. Do I have a bid of $5 for these? You have a lot of CDs here. You're going to have something to put them in. $5? How about 3? Okay, we have 3 back here. How about 4? Okay, we're going once at 3. Oh, we have $4 right here. Do I hear 5? Yep, we're back up to 5. I knew we could get there. How about 6? Do I hear 6? Going once at 5, twice at 5. Sold for $5. See this fine man up here in the striped shirt. Thank you.
And I can't get the SLU website to work. Oh well. All right, take about a 10-15 minute break. We have refreshments out back, thanks to Shirley. Donation cup is available back there. If you want to pay your dues, I am available up front. We'll reconvene, and we'll have Todd Bernhard from Cloud Checker to show off how to manage your cloud. Alrighty. I'm going to unplug this for a minute. Where is my bin? No, I thought I had cash in here. I guess it's still. Nope. Anyone have change for 10? Okay. We'll put that there. Let me check right now. Let me bring this up and turn this off and that one off. Okay. Sure. This is just crazy. No, VGA. Yeah. Or no, AirPlay. Should be called CIDER book. Receipt, we don't have that. Okay. Thought so. Okay. So that's two check. I will check and make sure.
I don't know. I didn't hear anything. I was just wondering. I don't all hold.
All right. Let me make a note to myself.
Reason why I was asking about that, I had to make a DVD and so I used Toast.
Mm-hmm.
And I did, and I went back and do some more, and ended up somewhere I changed to putting data on it. No one runs through DVD, and I couldn't figure out what the hell I'm doing wrong. So finally went back to the settings,
Yep.
put it through video, and it worked. Especially when I got so much money, I was worried about it.
Yeah. Yeah, let me hook it up here. All right, we'll have to do it otherwise. There we go. All right, so let me get to Air Server. I want to hide everything else. Hide that, hide that. hide that. iTunes I don't need anymore. App Store. All right, Air Server. No, not OBS, Air Server. They're both black. No available windows. Can you try to turn it on again? There we are. That looks like the right ratio. All right, let me set the camera. All right, there's the 5. And I didn't see it, but I thought I did, so I have to check the checkbook at home. Are you going to be at the board meeting?
I expect to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Next Wednesday? All right. I'll catch up with you then.
Taking any money for dues?
Sure, I can do that. Yep. And let me record this. That's fine. Okay. What was your name again?
Thomas is the last name.
All right, so we're going to do dues. Renew. It's $30. And there's my credit card reader. It is in my bag. ISS is passing overhead now too, at 8:28. Yeah. Only 35 degrees above the horizon though, that might not be high enough. ISS is passing over now.
Testing. Hello.
Yeah, you're gonna stand, you're gonna...
I'll
sit down?
stand.
Okay. What OS do we have on it now? Yeah, the upgrade is not automatic. It just tells you it's there, and then you can download it and install it. There's been some problems with disk utilities like Disk Warrior and Data Rescue, but I haven't heard of any major compatibility problems yet. Might want to wait till the end of the term. just in case. It may delete photo library, but it shouldn't delete photos.
I'm telling you, this thing, I'm pretty sure this said, I mean, you can correct me if you see this. I could probably go look at it. But the message was that you delete photos from the device, not from the iPhone.
Right, but I've had to do that to sometimes fix some errors or corruption. It's in the cloud. So
No, but he was.
all through your device.
Yeah.
And then when you turn it back on,
Yeah.
your download small now, and you're back on your thing.
But he was trying to
But-
not use the cloud. Period.
Yeah.
Which
But it wouldn't-
then you then you
It would,
lose
it would delete the photo library, but it shouldn't delete your camera roll.
Right.
But if it gives you that message,
I think it's telling it's leaving the impression that those are local, but they're not.
Yeah.
As far as you know, they're on your phone, but they're not.
Right.
Can you maximize that, or do you want to? I don't know.
Yep. I want to make sure the
Yeah.
YouTube is up. Let me get back to that. Where'd my YouTube app go? There it is. Move.
Stock photo. That's the last known photo of me wearing a tie, like 8 years ago.
you haven't looked back.
My company name is notie.com. Pretty much, I did an interview in a tie, and I told them during the interview, I said, if you need me to wear a tie, all deals are off. I still have the apps, and occasionally I'll create new ones or update them, and iOS 11, I'll have to update them. So, yeah. Nope, not on a cloud checker. All right, so want to get started?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So,
Hang on, I'm going to start
okay.
recording again.
no problem.
Which means I got to get the minimize record. All right, go ahead.
Okay. All right, so for those of you that don't know me, my name is Todd Bernhard, and as those of you who do know me, for most of the past 8 or 9 years, I've been doing iPhone app development, but as that became more and more competitive and business trailed off, I decided to get a full-time job, get a real job. And that was back in February. I started working for Cloud Checker in product marketing, and so we're going to talk a little bit about Cloud Checker, but more importantly about the cloud in general, and go over some terminology and what the issues are and things to look out for. So again, we'll talk about the state of the industry. I'll go over some terminology. The two big factors when you move to the cloud are cost and security, and we'll talk about how to address those. You may have heard of Nicholas Negroponte. He ran the MIT Media Lab for many years, and he coined this phrase or invented this concept, and it ended up being named after him, called the Negroponte switch. And the idea is that things that were once wired have become wireless, and things that were once wireless have become wired, right? So your telephone was wired, and now it's wireless. The radio and TV were wireless over the air, and now they're wired with cable TV, right? So we have this kind of bizarre situation where things that were once wired are now wireless, and vice versa. The other thing that's going on in the industry is a trend towards mobile first, right? You see that with Apple. You see that people are writing apps for the phone first, or they're even writing web pages that look well and display well on the phone, and then the desktop, they'll look fine there as well. But the first target is the mobile device. Well, that's what's happening in the cloud. Right? So the cloud computing now, instead of a data center with mainframes and high-end servers, people are moving to the cloud first, and there's a lot of benefits to that, and we'll talk about that. The cloud is mainstream. In the old days, 5, 6, 7 years ago, you had to convince somebody that moving to the cloud was worth it, that there were benefits to it, that it was secure, that it would save you money. But now everybody here, whether you know it or not, you use the cloud. Whenever you go on eBay, you're using the cloud. Whenever you look at or listen to music with Apple Music or your photos, you're using iCloud. So we're all using the cloud all the time. Of course, if you use Amazon, you're using the cloud. So we've crossed the chasm. We no longer have to convince people that the cloud is worth pursuing, but we're also at the point where it's a little more mature, and now we're realizing, okay, I can overspend on the cloud. It can be expensive.
We've gotten fewer and fewer syllables over the years. We're down to cloud.
Right, not the cloud or cloud computing. So people get it. The cloud is just another tool, but you can overspend on it, and you also have to make sure it's secure. It's not automatically secure. There's these other terminology, CapEx, OpEx, capital expenditure, operational expenditure. So capital expense is if you buy a building or you buy a house or you buy a car, and then you amortize it over a number of years, and that's how you declare it on your taxes and so on. Whereas an operational expense is you just rent it. Or think of Uber, right? You don't own the car, you just pay for the time that you use that vehicle. It's transportation as a service. And that is, in many ways, can be much more efficient. And that's really the model. Airbnb and Uber and Lyft, we don't own things anymore. We just pay for the service that we need, that we use. I'm going to spend a lot of time on this slide because there's a lot going on here. There's IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS. So I'm going to start on the left with the data center. Oops. So this is what we're all used to. The data center, where you are responsible for everything, right? You had the servers and the networking and the storage and the operating system, your applications, your data, everything you're responsible for. You built all this in a data center. You plugged it into the wall. You're responsible for the electricity. You're responsible for the physical security. If you have to hire security guards to stand out, and patrol the area, you're responsible for everything. And that's really expensive, especially if you don't need it all the time, right? If you are a store, an online store like Toys R Us or even Amazon, and your big business is right before the holidays, right? November, December. And then January comes around and you don't need all these servers. So you've got this big room with all this capacity and all this equipment and taking up so much electricity, and you're paying for it. And that's kind of what Amazon realizes, that they had excess capacity and they found a way to sell it to other people, and they created this business. So next you have IaaS, which is infrastructure as a service. So this is where someone like Amazon started, and they said, okay, we have the hardware, we have the storage, we will just rent it out to you by the hour, and you can pay us and use it and put your own software on it, your own operating system, your own applications, and you're responsible for that. And then they got to platform as a service, where they said, you know what, we'll provide you a ready-made solution running Windows or running Linux from Red Hat, or even running a database, so you don't have to know how to do that. You don't have to master all that. You can just rent that as a bundle, and then just put your own applications on top of it, and your own data. And then finally you get to the SaaS model, which is what CloudCheckr is an example of. Software as a service. And again, when you use eBay, you're using eBay's software as a service, right? They maintain the code, the software, the operating system. They're worried about security, physical security, logical security. You're just going on the web, logging in, using that software as a service. You got a question?
Got it. So in that last column, basically, you only have access to the applications and everything while connected to the web. You have to be connected to running on those servers.
Good point. So In fact, if you go back to that previous slide where, I'll do that. I'll go back to this slide right here. The only reason software as a service is even practical is because of this, of the bandwidth, the fact that we can walk in this building and we know we've got coverage. There's either Wi-Fi or our cell phones will work. The internet is ubiquitous. And so software as a service is practical. That's why it could not have happened in the days of America Online, right? Or even of mainframes. You needed this red line. You needed the internet to be everywhere for software as a service. Otherwise, you know what happens? The other day in our offices, somebody misconfigured the router. We were disconnected, and everybody's like, I'm going home, right? Well, I can't do anything without the internet.
I sent everyone an email that the internet was down.
Exactly.
I can't understand why they don't know.
Exactly. And that's pretty much what happened, but everybody looked on their cell phones. Their cell phones worked because they weren't on the Wi-Fi. So, yeah. Great. So that's what the green, yeah, that's what this green step function almost is right here. So you, as an enterprise end user, you're responsible for what's in green, okay? And then the vendor is responsible for everything else. So there's a really good analogy that I'm starting to use, and it's, say you want a pizza. There are a lot of different ways to get pizza. Consider it pizza as a service, okay? So you can go to Wegmans and make your own recipe, and your recipe tells you all the ingredients you need, so you got to go to Wegmans and get the dough or everything you need to make dough. You got to get the sauce, you got to get the cheese. If you want pepperoni, you got to get all that. You might even need a pizza cutter, and you might need a pizza plate, a stone, right? You get all the ingredients, you bring it home. You have to have an oven, you have to have a gas and electricity and a table and paper plates or regular plates, and you're responsible for everything, including the recipe itself. So that's not everybody can do that. Plus the oven and the electricity and gas. The next step would be, okay, I'll go to Wegmans, but I'll just get a frozen pizza. Someone else had the recipe, someone else took care of the ingredients. It's a lot easier for me. This is infrastructure as a service. I just get that pizza. I still have my own oven, my own gas, electricity, my table, my plates, china, and garbage, but I didn't have to do the first stuff. The next scenario is I call Domino's and they deliver the pizza. I don't need my oven and so on, but I still need my own tables and chairs and plates and garbage. And then the final one is you just go to a restaurant, you say, I want a pizza, you eat the pizza, you use their plates, their tables, their garbage, and that's it. You just got pizza as a service. So that's kind of, as you move left to right, you have less responsibility and you don't have any overhead. Okay? All right. So as we mentioned, I've talked a lot about Amazon. Amazon sort of gets credit for kickstarting the cloud. AWS is Amazon Web Services. It's a completely separate business, really, from what you and I use Amazon when we buy stuff. But they're operating in the cloud themselves, and they built all this expertise, and they found a way to monetize it, and they're making more money from that than from the traditional Amazon sales business. Azure is Microsoft's answer to that. In fact, I just came here. The reason I was late is I was at the Microsoft office for their Azure meetup. So that's why I can't always get to these meetings, because they unfortunately are the same days. So, but because I work for Cloud Checker, it's kind of my boss wants people to go to that. So I went to that, wore the jersey, and advertised the company, and still got here. But so Azure is coming on real strong. The thing that Microsoft is like a superhero, but they're like Bruce Wayne. And what is the line in the new movie coming out, Justice League? The guy who plays the Flash says, "What's your superpower?" And Ben Affleck goes, "I'm rich." That's his superpower, right? And Microsoft has all this money from all these years of selling you Windows and Office, and they're using that as their superpower to try to catch up and even leapfrog Amazon. And as an Azure customer, I use both Amazon and I use Azure. I have never paid a penny for Azure because they give it to me for free, because they just want more people using it, so you get stuck and hooked on it, and eventually I'll start paying. So that's their superpower. But the other ones are Google Cloud and IBM and Oracle and Salesforce and VMware and other companies. So in general, this is cloud computing. Amazon and Azure have different names for it. They call it, AWS calls it EC2, which stands for Elastic Compute Cloud. And Azure or Microsoft calls it virtual machines or VMs. Same thing. They're basically virtual machines running inside a bigger machine. And you know, two different companies, Coca-Cola and Pepsi, could be physically on the same server and they would never know it, and their data is kept isolated from each other, and that's all done through something called, which we heard earlier, virtualization. Now, where are these servers? They're all over the world. You ideally want your server to be close to your customers. And I think you mentioned, what was it, CloudFront? So CloudFront is a cache, it's a copy of your data, your company's data, that you would put all around the world so it would be closer. So if I'm in Rochester, I don't want to be connecting to a server in the Silicon Valley. I want to connect to a server in New York or Virginia or somewhere close, so I'm getting my data faster. So all these companies have all these availability zones all around the world. They typically have multiple sites in a city, or you know, two cities, say like Rochester and Buffalo, so that if one fails because of a flood or a fire or whatever, your data is copied to both locations. So two close locations throughout the area. In fact, we're going to release it very soon. I wrote an app called Zone Checker, right? Cloud Checker, so Zone Checker, and it will show you all the zones, all the regions for all the major cloud providers in an interactive map. It's really pretty cool. If we have time, maybe we can go to Zone Checker without the .com. Well, Amazon does that for you, which is great. So that's a good question. How do you keep those zones in sync? Or Amazon. So I would say the two zones in Virginia, I want them synchronized with my data. Amazon handles it for you. Then you'd have to have your own app or your own script, say every night at midnight. So you have to decide just how important is it for you for those to be in sync, because they can't be copying data every second of every day because of the latency. There's a concept called a load balancer or a traffic cop. I think there's an animation. That's what I was waiting for. There it is. So the traffic cop, you know, if you have, it's Christmas again and your servers are getting overloaded, you might have a dozen servers or 100 servers, and the traffic cop sits in between and says, oh, this guy's overloaded, I'm going to send more traffic to this server. Okay, so that's the purpose of the traffic cop, the load balancer. Amazon calls it the Elastic Load Balancer. Azure has several names: Application Gateway, Traffic Manager, and just Load Balancer. Storage, and we'll talk about this when we get to security, because this has been in the news a lot. But Amazon has something called S3, Simple Storage Service, and Microsoft calls theirs blob containers, which stands for Binary Large Object. But these are just big, almost like FTP, if you're familiar with that, file servers where you store big, large files like backups and databases, or, well, just backups, I'll say, backups of databases. A cache, so this is another example where you want content to be close to where it's needed. So, you know, you have data on your disks, you have data in your memory, and then you have data in cache, which is even faster. So we use different phrases. So Amazon has Elasticache, and Azure has Redis. CloudFront, so this is Amazon's name for a content delivery network, which again is, if you've ever heard of Akamai in the old days, so whenever a company had like big files, like video files, they wouldn't bother hosting that on their own server, because big files take a lot of space, use up a lot of bandwidth. They would use a service like Akamai, or nowadays CloudFront, or Azure's content delivery network, and those servers, those storage servers, are located all around the world, close again to the end user. Now, I just added this slide before I spoke because you guys mentioned Dockers. So there's a concept called a hypervisor, and what a hypervisor is, it's a layer of isolation typically between bare metal, between the hardware and guest operating systems. So this is what allows you, you've heard of VMware, you've probably heard of VirtualBox, Sun, when I used to work for Sun, and that allows you to run multiple operating systems, even different operating systems, on the same box. So it allows you to keep, one of them could crash and it won't affect the other ones, even though they're on the same server. So the hypervisor handles all that. Okay. So VMware just announced, in fact, I was at VMworld in Las Vegas because of this. They just announced a partnership with Amazon where you can run VMware on Amazon servers. So that Amazon providing a bare metal server that lets you run VMware on it. So all these people who, for the past few years, because VMware got bought by EMC, which got bought by Dell. So they got a ton of customers who've been using VMware as a way to run virtual machines in the data center, but they wanted to run on the cloud and get all the benefits of the cloud, low cost and the scalability, and not having to own physical hardware. And as much as Dell would like to sell you physical hardware, the writing was on the wall. So now you can run VMware on Amazon servers. And here I added this slide. So containers versus virtual machines. It's a subtle difference. Basically, the container says you don't have to run an operating system on it. I'll take care of the operating system function. And the benefit there is you can very quickly deploy a container. So with a virtual machine, you run multiple operating systems, and when you turn one on, what happens when you turn on your Mac or your PC? Right, you go get some coffee while it boots up, right? Especially if you're talking about a real high-end server, a big database, etc. So with a container, you turn it on and it's ready in seconds. Okay, so you're not booting up an operating system. So a container is not exactly a virtual machine. It's a lot of people like it for that reason. Just real quick. Okay, so we've gone through all this terminology. You can see how complex it can be and how you could overspend real quickly. So what you need is a cloud management provider. Cloud checker to the rescue.
Dun, dun, dun.
There you go. So you can read this quote, but Gartner estimates that people are overspending on the cloud by as much as 70%. And it's true. Typically our customers save about 30% just by using Cloud Checker and following our recommendations. No, in fact, it's real tricky because we charge you based on how much you spend, right? So if you spend $100,000 on the cloud, we charge you 2% of that, okay? $2,000. Now, if we save you 30%, we just cut our fee in by 30%. And I was talking with our CEO about this the other day. I did a webcast with him, and I said, what's the deal? And he says, it's basically like a land rush. We're just trying to get more customers. We're not worried about, squeezing every last penny out of those customers. So,
idea.
Yeah, I mean, Amazon. It worked for Amazon, right? Amazon has lowered their prices on the cloud 60 times since AWS was released. Most companies, when they get you, they lock you in and they raise their prices. They've lowered their prices 60 times. In fact, just a couple weeks ago, they copied and surpassed Google and Microsoft. So Amazon charged you by the hour. If you used that computer for 59 minutes or 1 minute, you paid the same price. Well, Google and Microsoft charged you by the minute. So if you used it for 1 minute, you paid half as much as if you used it for 2 minutes. And if you used it for 59 minutes, you paid 59 times more than the 1 minute charge. I mean, that's the promise of the cloud, that you only pay for what you use, right? But if you were using it for an hour and 1 minute, you paid for 2 hours with Amazon. So Amazon didn't just charge by the minute now, they charge by the second. That's what Amazon does. Amazon's like, okay, I'll see you and I'll go one better. So now you're being charged only by the second. I mean, that's in the customer's benefit. That's great. Google followed suit. Microsoft hasn't said what they're going to do yet. But now Microsoft's the one who's charging by the minute. So if you use it for a minute and 1 second, Amazon charges you for 61 seconds. Microsoft charges you for 120 seconds or for 2 minutes, right? So it's very interesting. So we're in this stage where, it used to be a shiny new toy, and everyone's like, "Oh, this is great! I'm using the cloud, and I'm ahead of everybody else, and this is great." And then now they go into the new world. I get my little animation. They leave the nest, or to continue with the toy example, they enter the new world, and they're like, "Okay, what can I do now with this? What are some cool new things I can do?" And then the stage 3 enlightenment, where they're like, "Okay, now we're cooking with gas. Now I can get rid of my data center. I trust it, and this is secure, but I also don't want to overspend." All right, I'm gonna skip through some. Yeah. So it's a delicate balance. Like, how much do you want to spend? If you want transportation, here are a lot of different ways you can get transportation. So they each have their advantage. The bus, you don't have to own anything. It's just transportation as a service. A smart car, maybe it's more efficient. Maybe it's better for the environment. Sports car is more fun, but you have to be a good driver. The problem is, the good and bad thing about the cloud is that it's so easy to add computing resources. It's just like shopping at Amazon, literally. You click on launch instance. Boom, I've just created another computer. I didn't have to go to Best Buy or CompUSA in the old days, or talk to some sales rep from Dell and get an RFP and get a quote and get my boss to sign off on it. Now anybody with authorization in the company can click launch instance. Yeah, that's great. It's also bad, right? Because now you can just overspend so easily. There's ways to do availability. I'm going to skip through that. Talked about availability zones. We talked about different cloud providers. What we like to talk about is right sizing. So in the old days, in the data center, if you spent a lot of money on your computers, you wanted them, you didn't want to have to go out and buy new ones, right? Because it was such a pain to do that, to go through that process, and it took so long. So you would run these computers at maybe 10%, maybe 20% capacity, because you knew that you were going to need growth. You knew that your budget cycle was such that you couldn't just go out and get new computers, or it would take too long. And if there was Christmas and your sales spiked, you needed to be able to handle the worst case scenario in terms of capacity. So you would overspend on your server to accommodate the worst case scenario. But in the cloud, you can literally add servers at the click of a button. You can even automate it, so while you're asleep, if it detects a situation where you need more servers, it just goes off and kicks them off. Okay? So with the cloud, you want to be running at 90% capacity. You're only paying for what you're using, and it's so easy to add more when you need it. So yeah, max it out, right? So that's the promise of the cloud. But it also can bring this new phrase called cloud sprawl. So in the old days, we had server sprawl, where you would just need more servers, and before you know it, your data center is full of servers, and you're spending a fortune on electricity and so on. Well, now, because you can just click a button, you can get cloud sprawl just as easily, if not more easily. So you need to optimize things. And this is the first screen you see when you log into Cloud Checker. It tells you right away, hey, you're spending this much, you could be saving this much. And so people see that and they're like, oh my gosh, I could save $300, I could save $3,000, whatever it is. And then we tell you what the recommendations are. You can also set up budget alerts that say, whenever, and it's completely customizable, whenever I'm at 25%, 50%, 75% of my budget, send me an alert. And that alert can be a text message or an email. Gartner actually did the math, and this has changed since then, but they estimated there are over 1.7 million decisions you have to make when going to the cloud. And that's just for Amazon. And that was before Amazon came out with some more instances. So that was when they had 70 instance types. And there's 14 purchasing options, and then you've got to choose the operating system and all those availability zones we mentioned, and something called tenancy and storage. So the bottom line is there's just a ton of decisions. Now, when I was a kid, I had a poster just like this, and I loved it. And it was decisions, decisions, decisions. Which sports car would I get? And they say that children make 3,000 decisions a day. Adults make 35,000 decisions a day. Which parking spot do I get? Which chair do I sit in? You don't think about it, but you're making a ton of decisions. And this is a map or a menu of, anybody guess what this is a menu of? Who can tell? It's a restaurant here in town. It's a chain. Cheesecake Factory. Good job. So Cheesecake Factory has a huge menu, right? And it's dark and you're looking and fine print. So what I do, I found one dish I like, that's all I get. I get the same thing every time. Quick, done, makes my life easier. I have friends, we used to work together, and they would go to the same restaurant, the King and I, and they would get a new dish every time. They started at the beginning of the menu, and they just went down the list. And that way, at the end of the year, they would have had everything once. Either way, we've both made our lives easier because they don't have to make that decision, and I don't have to make a decision, and it gives you freedom, I think. So anyway, whatever it takes. But we make so many decisions a day. For instance types, you have to decide, is it going to be on-demand, reserved, or spot? And I'll get into that. Buying on-demand is like going to the grocery store and when you're hungry. They say don't do that, right? Because you're hungry, you're going to say, oh, I need that, I want that, oh, I need that. And you're going to buy more than you need, right? But that's what buying on-demand instances are. That's when you say, oh, I need computing power, let me go buy it right now, I'll hit launch instance. You really want to plan ahead. You want to say, I know Christmas time is going to be a big time for me, so I'm going to predict what my needs are going to be throughout the year. And then you can get discounts. And those are through something called reserved instances, where you say to Amazon, I know I'm going to need a computer for the rest of the year, or for 3 years. And the longer you buy it, the better the discount. And you can commit to a certain amount of computing power. And it's good for Amazon because now they know, predictably, what their demands are going to be for the next year or 3 years. And they can buy and build accordingly. You have to decide what platform. So whether you're running Linux, what version of Linux, or you're running Windows, what version of Windows. I'm not going to go through this. It's like an eye chart, but every instance type has its own specs, just like a MacBook, right? Or you've got how much memory, how much CPU, how much storage, what kind of storage. Is it SSD, flash, or is it mechanical spinning hard drive? Is it optimized for graphics? Is it optimized for I/O? So you have to know your type of computing needs. But the good news is, it's unlike when you buy a computer, you can change this. Right? There's flexible instances, so you can say, oh, suddenly I guess we don't really need so much I/O, but we really need graphics. And you can switch. And then there's different sizes of all of those. Right? Small, medium, large, extra large, 16 extra large. It's crazy.
It's going to be hard for them to keep that all in track, too.
Absolutely. And, they'll retire the old ones. As Intel comes out with new chips, they adapt as well. I mean, it's just like Apple, too. The location, maybe we'll show you Zone Checker if we have time, but that's a pretty cool tool. Tenancy is within the computer that Amazon owns. You are just a virtual computer in there. So you might need 4 CPUs, but their computer has 64, so they can have, do the math, how many of customers like you inside that computer. But you are all isolated. However, there are cases where you might want to be dedicated. Maybe you're running Oracle, and Oracle is licensed by the computers, by the CPUs that it's running on, and they're very picky about that. So they'll say, you cannot willy-nilly go on this computer and then go over here and go over there and go over here. So you're going to find a computer at Amazon, and you're going to run on that computer. Again, you'll get a discount if you pay over 1 year, or if you commit to 1 year, or a better discount if you commit to 3 year. Inconsistent pricing. So this is an example of, let's say everybody here worked at Xerox, and Xerox has a deal with Staples, but so they get 20% off of everything, but you've got to buy through the purchasing agent. But you don't have time for that. You got to get some CDs and CD cases, so you go to the store and you pay list price. That happens all the time, and it can be for airfare, it can be for office supplies, what have you. So that happens with companies, right? If individuals go and sign up for an Amazon account, they're paying list price. They're not benefiting from these volume discounts that have been negotiated. We've talked about these reserved instances. There's another thing called spot instances. So Willie Sutton was asked, why do you rob banks? He says, that's where the money is. The real money, the real savings, if you want to get to that 70, 80, 85% savings off the on-demand pricing, is spot instances. This is like an auction. So again, if we go back to the pizza example, imagine somebody had some pizza outside and they didn't eat it all, and they say, all right, anybody want pizza? I'll sell it to you for $1. I got one slice for $1. And then so you're all set, and you're like, great, I can get a slice of pizza for $1. And the guy next to you goes, well, I'll give you $1.05. Oh, suddenly that pizza's pulled out from under you. So spot instances is an auction site, just like Amazon or just like eBay. And it's done automatically, programmatically, and people say, you know what, I bought all these computing processes, but Christmas is over, or we're going out of business, or we've realized, you know, we bought more than we needed. They put it up for auction, and then you can buy those resources for far less than the full price. And you don't have any kind of commitment because it's an auction. It just happens. And if you get outbid, you could be using it and suddenly it gets pulled out from under you, right? So you have to use certain types of applications, right? Databases, you know, if I was a bank, I would not want to be running on a spot instance that could be pulled out from under me. A website where you're just, you know, like computing pi and who cares, you know, whatever. So it is a tricky situation, but that's where the real savings can be. So I talked about the risks, and there's software to manage that. We have, our name is Cloud Checker, so I like to say check is our middle name. Cloud, check, R. So check is our middle name. So best practice checks is really where we excel. We have over 500 best practice checks. We just got a sheet cake with 500 on it because it was a big deal. So we have checks for security, cost savings, and so on, and it really helps automate things. Now, you guys have seen the commercial, I think it's for LifeLock, where the guy says, the bank's being robbed, and they say, do something. He says, oh, I'm just a security monitor, not a security guard, right? I'll just tell you when you're being robbed. You're being robbed. Well, that's just monitoring, and that's important, but we also do assessment and compliance. That really makes sure that you are secure, that you're conforming to HIPAA, PCI, FedRAMP, all these government standards. Now, there's this concept called the shared responsibility model, and it says AWS, but this is true for every cloud vendor. It's true for iCloud. You got to maintain your password. If you write your password on the wall here at school, you know, good luck, right? If you share it with other people, you know, good luck. Or if you use a stupid password like 1234, good luck, right?
That's the same password on my luggage.
Uh-oh, sorry. So the shared responsibility model, all these companies that have been in the news lately, Accenture, Deloitte, I think it was the NFL, or the WWE, they've all been in the news because they had misconfigured their security. But Amazon gave them all the tools to do it correctly. So the analogy is you build this great house, and it's got a great door and a great lock, and on your way out of the house, you leave it wide open, unlocked. You've got to do your part. The contractor built a great house with a great door and a great lock. You've got to lock the door. That's a shared responsibility model. So we provide what's called best practice checks. Here's some for security. These are just the ones showing about password policy. Make sure that the passwords have to be a certain length, that they have special characters, they have uppercase, they have lowercase, they have a number, that they don't last for more than 180 days and people have to change them. Things like that, we can automate the checking of that. We work with the Center for Internet Security, so they've come up with all these recommendations, and this is a nonprofit organization, schools, enterprises, software vendors like us, and they say these are what we think companies should be doing. And so, as I mentioned, this was the big breach, a bunch of breaches, WWE. What else do we have there? A defense contractor, Dow Jones the other day. So a lot of Equifax, all these big companies that should know better. And the interesting thing is the default configuration is private. It is secure. So somebody somewhere deliberately took these servers, these storage buckets, and opened them up, and then put confidential data on them, like names and passwords and birthdays and home addresses and so on. So Amazon gave you this secure stuff, and they turned it public, and then chose to put confidential data on it. So, and it's very simple. This is all they did. Click, now it's public. But they relied on something called security through obscurity, where the address for your bucket of storage might be something really complicated, like alpha google 1923z .amazon.com. And they figure, well, nobody's going to guess that. Well, nobody did guess it. Instead, some hacker wrote a program that checks everything from AAAAAA through ZZZZZ with numbers and hyphens in between. Hit go, went to lunch, came back and found, oh, this storage bucket's open. That's all it takes. That's called brute force. And now that computers are so powerful, you can do that quickly. So that security through obscurity doesn't work. So we came out with a free tool called s3checker.com, and you just type in your address, your own S3 bucket address, and it will tell you, is it public, is it not public? Simple free service that we did because, honestly, all these stories hurt us. They hurt everybody who thinks the cloud is a good thing. When people hear, oh, the cloud's not secure, well, no, it's as secure as you allow it to be. So we made this tool free, and we just came out with yesterday blobchecker.com, which is the same thing for Microsoft Azure. They call theirs blobs, binary large object. Now, automation. A lot of people are like scared of automation. They think of the Terminator. I think of Rosie the robot, friend or foe. My daughter just got her driver's license, so I'm all in favor of self-driving cars, right? So I'm like, this is my example. We go from the hacker he's the only one who knows how to operate things to George Jetson, he would come home from work and his wife would say, "How was your day?" And he'd say, "Terrible. I had to push the button twice." That was a bad day in the future where you had to push the button, and let alone twice. So, are we scared of that? Do we like that? What does it mean for job security if now the computers can do everything? I think it frees us up to do other things. So I'm in favor of automation. And that's why we've come up with these things called Fix Now. So of those 500 plus best practice checks, many of them can say, here's the problem, here's how to fix it. Do you want me to fix it for you? Which is great. And then some of those have the ability to say, and would you like me to fix it whenever I detect it again in the future? So that's just the dream, right? So now, if at 5:01 p.m. on a Friday somebody opens up their S3 bucket to the public and you go home, if CloudChecker detects that, it will fix it and send you an email and says, hey, while you were away, this happened, I fixed it, you're welcome. And you come in on Monday and you're the hero, right? So automation can be very powerful. And it's not just for security, it can also be for cost savings. And remember what I said about Amazon charging per second now? Well, if they're charging per second, the sooner you can make those changes, the sooner you can save money, right? So that's kind of it for CloudChecker. The key is that we do both security and compliance as well as cost management and billing. So most of our competitors only do one or the other. So that's why I'm really proud to be at CloudChecker, because we do what we call a single pane of glass, so one screen to do everything that you really need. All right, thank you. What questions do you have? Yeah.
I've heard both sides of it. One of the things you had a few slides back was, well, has the password been changed in the last 180 days? How does that make it more secure?
Good point. In fact, the guy who invented a lot of these phrases was in the paper the other day, who said, oh, you should have a long password and it should have numbers and letters and special characters and all this. He's now against that because
he apologized. He
apologized because what happens is people end up using the same thing repeatedly throughout all their sites, or they they write it down because it's tricky and they'll put on a post-it note on your computer. What good is that? So a lot of people say the best thing to do is to take 4 random words, like chair, cat, convertible, hat. Who's going to guess that, right? And that is more secure than any 8-digit combination with special characters because of the brute force stuff we talked about. You'd have to do 16 letters now, or 20 letters, but it's something you could remember. You know, so we implement these checks, but you can also choose to ignore them. You can say, you know what, my company's policy is we don't reset them every 180 days. Or you can say 360 days instead of 180. So you can configure a lot of these settings the way you want and ignore the ones you don't want.
We heard stories from on Security Now where he overheard a conversation at a coffee house and said, yeah, he's complaining that my company makes me change the password every 90 days, and I can't use any of the last 5 passwords. So I just changed it 6 times, and now I'm fine. So I'm back to the original.
Exactly, yeah.
Several years ago when I worked at Xerox, the organization, well, actually it was different, but anyhow, I got a card that had electronics in
Yep.
it, and it changed the code every
Mhm.
minute or something.
My bank did that.
Yep, I know.
HSBC.
And you know, when
Yeah.
I wanted to log into the computer back at
Yeah.
the mothership,
Yeah.
I had to use that
Yeah.
number. Is there any
Time-
equivalent to that?
Time-based one-time passwords.
Well, there's this concept called bring something, know something in security. So bring something, know something says, I have to know my password, but I also have to bring my thumbprint or my retina or my face ID. I have to bring something in it. So it doesn't do you any good to have one without the other. And it doesn't matter what the technology is. It's just the general concept is bring something, know something.
And several companies used to use those time-based tokens. eBay and PayPal used them for a long time. They got too expensive, which is interesting because they should get cheaper as time goes on. But there was another episode of Security Now where they talked about PayPal was discontinuing their time-based token. They called it the football because it looked like a little football on your keychain. Because VeriSign, the company that made them, apparently was raising the price again. And so they said, your password is more secure. And they went in a big discussion about, no, it's not.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
the other thing that you'll see, and it was one of the best practice checks we have, is multi-factor authentication. And I'm sure you guys have run into this. If you enable that for your iOS devices, which you should, it will say, hey, you logged into a brand new MacBook or a brand new iPhone or iPad. You've never done that before in this machine. I'm going to send a message to your other iPhone, which we know is trusted, and you haven't removed it, right? If your phone gets lost, you say, wipe it, right? So as long as your phone is still good, it's going to go to your phone and say, do you trust this login in Rochester, New York? Yes, okay, then it'll generate a 6-digit code. You type the code in here, and it's a bit of a nuisance, but it gets around that. Yeah, two-step authentication.
yeah.
So it's just multi-factor, and it's just
Now, some websites are claiming multi-factor, but they ask you 2 different questions. So that's 2 things you know. That's 2 of a single factor. That's not right.
What's your father's middle name, which is a public record, and what street did you grow up on you live? That's public record. So. Yeah, we have custom best practice checks as well, so you can program your own. And well, yeah, that's just a configuration option within these ones, but you can create your own completely from scratch best practice checks too. Yeah, yeah, right.
I didn't see Mac OS supported.
Yeah, it's a shame. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Well, not as a server, but as clients.
Well, here, yeah, of course, clients, but as you guys know, some of you know, I have my own Mac Mini server in a co-location facility in Las Vegas, and it runs the back end for all my apps.
Did you visit it while you were out there?
I actually got in touch with the sysadmin there. I'm like, hey, are you going to be at VMworld? And he says, maybe. We don't have a booth, and we never got connected. But I'm going back twice in the next 6 months, so I'm going November and January for CES. So my Mac Mini's been there for 6 years or so, and I still need that. I can't move entirely to the cloud because I can't run Mac OS as a virtual machine in any of these guys' clouds. Now I pay $55 a month indefinitely. It's my own server, so it's not the cloud really. I mean, it's just my computer in somebody else's power and internet. But I don't have to worry about my internet going down. I used to have it in my house, and I had Time Warner Business Class, but in a residence, they treat it like residence, and if it goes down, too bad. And I had to worry about the power going out and everything. So I just put it there, and it just sits there and does its job. But I also use Amazon Web Services for some other stuff, databases, and I use Azure for a different business. So that's called multi-cloud. And hybrid cloud is where you have stuff in the cloud and stuff in your data center. And both are popular still. People are not cold turkey going to the cloud. But mine's a good example that you cannot. Apple doesn't let you run Mac OS as a virtual machine. You can run Mac OS virtual machines on a Mac, right? Because you paid the license for the Mac that it's running on. But you can't run Mac OS on a generic Intel box. We call it Hackintosh. It can be done, but not legally. I wish it would. It would solve so many problems for me.
What was the thing you were going to show us at the ad
Oh yeah, Zone Checker. Thank you.
Yep. While you're bringing that up, I'm not sure which bucket it falls into is the Office 365, where you have the Office apps resident on your machine, but that then comes with a terabyte of online storage that you can use OneDrive that essentially sort of gives you the hybrid.
One of the usual decisions we talk about in our office with Office 365 is how many computers are you using? So Office is $150 per computer if you want to buy a one-time license. Office 365 is $99 a year, but it's 5 computers, 5 phones, and 5 tablets. So if you're in a multi-device family, or even yourself, you got your computer, your phone, your tablet, that $99 a year might be more cost effective. Right. And you always get the new version for free, so you don't have to pay again for Office 2016. You don't have to pay again for Office 2019 they just announced. So yeah, if you're in a multi-device family, that 365 is handy. And even if you do buy the regular Office single user license, you do get some cloud space. I think it's only 10 gigs, not a terabyte, but that's usually enough for one person. Word files are small. Right, you can use Apple's Office suite that comes free with all the stuff now, or you can use LibreOffice. The nice thing about Apple's Office suite, the iWork suite, Pages, Keynote, Numbers, the same program runs on your Mac that runs on your iPad that runs on your phone, and so you can edit a file on one device and use it on another device very easily.
Yeah, I did Keynote for this because I like that. I like the transitions that Keynote offers as well, but I like that I can be working on my slides on my computer, and I was like, do I bring my computer? Maybe I'll just present from my iPhone, and it just goes to the cloud and gets the file. So actually, I think I did PowerPoint here because I was using Cloud Checker PowerPoint, but normally, like last night at App Rochester, I used Keynote. But thank you. Here's Zone Checker, and it's a map of the world. It's interactive. I can click on or off, toggle on or off any of these Amazon, Azure, or Azure's coming soon sites, Google and Oracle. So I'll play with that and you'll see. So those blue dots went away. So you see Azure has more zones, more regions of coverage than anybody, even Amazon. And that kind of makes sense. One of the I joked about Amazon or Microsoft's superpower being money. It's also offices. I was at the Microsoft office today, a beautiful new office in Woodcliff near Eastview Mall. They have offices because they have sales reps because they have so many customers locally. Amazon is all virtual, right? They're talking about moving to another location and maybe even Rochester.
Cities are bidding to get in Amazon.
We put out a letter, and we had a bunch of people from the mayor's office in our office today. But Amazon is mostly in Seattle, so they don't have that local presence. They don't have a sales rep that can, schmooze somebody, take them to golf, and do whatever. So the same thing with their offices. Microsoft can put data centers anywhere, and that gives them this benefit. If you look at India, which has over 1 billion people, if you want to serve 1 billion people in India, let's say you're a startup and you're particularly for India, there is behind there is one data center for Amazon, but there are 3 for Azure, and Azure is adding 2 in South Africa. So if you want to serve anybody in the continent of Africa, only Azure is going to have a couple of zones in South Africa.
There was a report that some of iCloud is running on Azure. Apple would never confirm it, of course, but I think someone was doing some URL sniffing, and
Who knows? It could be a company that they bought. You know, they just haven't got around to fixing that. But that's a good question. Good point. So you can zoom in and out too. Yeah, you can see Europe is really well represented, but it's interesting. It was fun to play with this.
noticed some interesting gaps in Russia.
Yeah, I was just talking about that with our CTO today. I'm like, yeah, there's nobody in Russia. I don't think that's going to change anytime soon.
Volunteering to go there on
Yeah, I think there'll be the Kremlin cloud, and Putin will have access to everything.
South America? Yeah, I mean, there's some big cities in South America.
It's funny. Everybody's in Sao Paulo, Brazil. That's it. Really? That's it. They're all in Sao Paulo. But
There's only one in Canada, it looks like.
there's only one, and it's Amazon in Canada. Although, no. Azure, I think, has some
Oh, Toronto,
Ontario.
and Montreal, yeah.
Yeah, Ottawa. But this was interesting for me. Obviously it was also interesting looking up latitudes and longitudes for everybody and plotting this and building a JavaScript. But then once it's all together, you get to look at this and say, oh, it's interesting. Everybody's in Brazil, but nowhere else in South America. So the closest one would be Toronto from Azure, and then the next real there's Ohio, and the yellow ones are Amazon Ohio, orange ones, and Virginia. There's a big cluster in Virginia, and
Reston, Virginia, next to the NSA.
yeah, it's one of these is the DoD. It's Ashburn, Virginia. I don't know what again. So maybe these cities make deals, to be attractive and low electricity rates or things like that. But yeah. Cool.
Thank you, John.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Alrighty, we'll do some switch over of technology here while we disconnect Todd from my computer. Thank you. And bring up iOS again. So that, let's see, we're going to hide Todd and turn on me. And well, in general, the password policies, and in fact, the guy that talked about where that password came from, he said there were no policies that he could find written down anywhere, so he just went around and started asking people. Let's see if I can. It's not going to find it quick. So that password document that became part of the NIST recommendations just was sort of an accident. No one had any policies at the time, so that's sort of what they just became the default. And he has since said he's sorry, and the length of the password is much more important than the complexity, and especially the substitutions, an @ sign for a 2 or something like that. All the bad guys know about that. So one of the features in the Mac is the keychain that stores your passwords. When you go to a site to create a new password, the keychain will recommend a password for you, and it's like 20 characters long, uppercase, lowercase, hyphens. No way you can remember it, but the keychain remembers it for you. And for a lot of people, that's fine. Let the keychain remember it, and then you just have to remember your one master password for your computer that all your other passwords are stored under. The sort of the concept of changing your password very often was basically assumed that you don't want the bad guy to get your password, so just change it every 90 days. What if he got it 89 days ago? And so you should change it every day. What if you got it this morning? Well, then you should change it every hour. Somewhere along the way, it gets to be too complex. But when you're creating a password, like Todd said, use 4 random words. You don't want it to be one word because there's dictionary attacks. They'll feed every word in the dictionary into a brute force checker. You don't want it to be a popular quote or a phrase because they feed Bartlett's familiar quotes in, or Roger's thesaurus. So 4 random words gives you a really long password, and that gives you I don't want to print. That gives you the complexity that is better for not getting cracked. And we've talked in the past about password haystacks, that the length of your password, monkey, snow, car, October. So that's 19 characters, but it will take 250,000 centuries to crack because it's long. So that's a much better password at W00RD. So that looks like a good password. Oh, I forgot S. PASSWORD. So that's a common password. And they think it's popular because it's got symbols in it. No, it'll take a minute to crack. And probably less than that because the bad guys also feed in known passwords. All right, so we got a little bit of time left for iOS. How many people have upgraded to iOS 11? A lot of people, okay. And that was the wrong button again. Don't save. Let me go back to here. I want that button. We mentioned earlier that they have released a patch for it, 2 patches now, so 11.02. And I want to find the system requirements. Basically, anything in the iPhone 5S or later, it's all the way at the very bottom here. Here we are. 5S or later in the phones, although we've been hearing, Dennis Worster posted a link that the 5S is really slow running OS 11, so you may want to skip it. On the iPad, it needs to be an iPad Air in the 10-inch model, the iPad Air or later, or the Mini 234, or any of the iPad Pros. And in the iPod, it's only the 6th generation. So the iPods are kind of left behind in the older iPods. And as we said, and I'm going to bring on my mirroring here. As we said, you want to make sure you've got a backup of your device before you do the upgrade. And so what you want to do, go to Settings, and then go to your iCloud settings, and you can check your iCloud backup. So we might have to swipe down here to find iCloud backup. And that will tell you when your last backup to iCloud was. And as a lot of you probably have run into, your 5 gigabytes of free space may not be enough. And so it may tell you there's not enough free space. So then you need to connect it to iTunes on your computer to do the backup. You want to make sure you have a backup in case something goes wrong so you can restore back to where you were. The backup does back up everything. Your pictures, your email, your contacts, everything. Yeah, as long as you have a backup. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead. So far, so the question is if you get in a phone that still has the old OS and there's nothing on it, So far, we haven't seen the upgrade brick any phones, which is a term we say, turns your phone into a brick and you can't use it anymore. Generally speaking, if the update fails, you can always erase the phone and update it again. So you don't have to worry about that. So and if there's nothing on your phone you would care about losing, then you don't have to worry about a backup. That's one of the things we say in our office is, would you cry if you lost everything on your phone, including all your pictures, your computer? You should have the backup of your computer. Would you cry if you lost everything on your computer? And people will tell us, oh, no, I don't have anything on there. What about your photos? Ooh, yeah. The baby photo. Ooh, yeah. The grandbaby photo. Ooh, yeah, I would cry. Your financial data, yeah, that Quicken file you've been working on for 20 years to build up your finances, all your tax returns. So for most people, yes, you would cry a lot if you lost everything on your computer. So you want to have a backup one way or the other. Well, no, it's not that iCloud isn't enough. You may not have enough free space to back up to iCloud. Apple only gives you 5 gigs free. If you have more data than that, you need to buy more storage space. Some people don't mind the 99 cents a month for 50 gigs. That's pretty good. Some people, we've seen a few people that have 2 or 3 phones and iPads between the family each, so they're backing up sometimes 6 or 7 devices. You go up to the next step is $299 a month for 200 gigs. Right, so you could have a 256 gig phone. If that phone is full, you need to buy the next step up, I think, is a terabyte of cloud space. So the more stuff you have on your phone, the more cloud space you'll need to do your backup. And it will tell you when you go into your iCloud backup settings if there's enough space to back up to iCloud. And mine has enough space. My last backup was today, earlier today. You might not have enough storage. You might need to buy more. Well, that's a different question. Generally speaking, iCloud has been proven safe. There haven't been any data breaches of iCloud itself. There have been issues with people having their password guessed, but we haven't seen any issues with iCloud being breached in general. So in general, it is a safe service to use. Some people like to also back up to their computer just in case. And one backup is good, 2 backups is better. But one is enough for most people. Yeah, you plug a device into the computer and use iTunes to back it up. No, to the computer. Right. No, I'm sorry. We're talking about iOS. So you back up your iOS device to your computer. Your computer you have to back up to a hard drive. iCloud is only for iOS backups. You cannot back up your computer to iCloud. That hard drive has to be connected to the computer, and you have to copy the backup file yourself. We went through that with Charlie's question earlier. Yeah. Yep. Right, that's a different. Right, that's two different. That's 2 different services under iCloud, separate from iCloud backup service. So iCloud has a dozen different services. Yeah. Yes, backup stores everything. Photo is separate, yes. iCloud Photo Stream stores 1,000 photos for free. Does not count toward your space. So if 1,000 photos is hundreds of gigabytes, probably not, but if it is, it doesn't count. Photo Library stores all of your photos, and that does count towards your storage space. Yeah. Excellent question. So we've seen a couple of it already. At the bottom, we now have a dock that looks a little bit more like the dock on the Mac. So in previous OS versions, you could have 4 icons at the bottom, and then in later versions, you could have 6. So now, on the computer, yeah, I can use the computer mouse to point to things on the screen. So now you've got 6 apps you can put in the dock, and it also shows you the last 3 most recent apps you were running. So you can easily go to the last app you were running. So I just popped back into the settings app, and so you can go back and forth between your recent apps, and you hit your home button and you go back to the home page and you see your dock again. They have changed the way the control center works. Actually, control strip. They've renamed it control center. So if you double tap your home button, which will bring up the control strip and the application launcher, it now shows you all the applications that you have open in bigger thumbnails. You're used to only able to see one window and then maybe the sides of 2 other applications. So now you can see a lot of applications better, and you can scroll through all the applications you have open. I accidentally took a picture of my iPad case as I was putting the iPad back into it. After I took a picture of a computer that had a bad connector. And so, like the previous iOSs, if you swipe up on an app, it will quit that app. But now, if you're really good, here, I did 4 at a time. Let me try 6. No, I tapped 1 and it launched. So it's the same way you tap an app and it launches. The more apps you can swipe up at a time, so you can actually quit 6 apps at a time if you're really good. And that shows you the apps you have open. So like double tapping the home button to see your apps, you can now see a bigger thumbnail of more apps on the screen. Also, the control strip on the side has now changed a little bit more. It has brought a bunch of stuff together in a single place where you don't have to swipe left and right anymore to get to different places. And so you can turn your flashlight on and off. You can jump into your camera really quick. Take a picture of the PA system. Control your volume and brightness. So it lets you jump into the different pieces of the control strip easier, all on one screen rather than it used to be on previous devices. The caveat I had mentioned earlier is a lot of you might be used to turning off the Wi-Fi, the Bluetooth, or going into airplane mode to help save battery power. We have discovered that in iOS 11, when you turn off the radios in the control strip, it only turns off non-Apple apps. So it leaves the radios turned on, but disconnects non-Apple apps, because you might want to use AirDrop or you might want to use AirPlay screen mirroring. And so Apple doesn't turn them off for Apple apps. So it's not the battery savings we used to think it was. And they turn themselves back on again when after a while. I think at 5 a.m. Somebody I was listening to said. So if you actually do want to turn your radios off, you need to go into the settings app, and then you can turn off Wi-Fi, you can turn off Bluetooth, or you can go into airplane mode, which would then turn all your radios off. And if you turn it off in settings, that actually does turn them off. I imagine Apple got a lot of tech support calls. I can't connect my phone to my car because you turn Bluetooth off to save battery power. Who just turned on mirroring? Whose phone is that? Somebody just turned on their own mirroring, and now they're mirroring into my computer too. Oh, you got a lot of apps and a lot of folders. Actually, I probably could do that to show the difference between iPhone and iPad. There's some differences between the way the iPhone works and the iPad works, but it's similar. There's also, the iPhone 10 does not have a home button anymore. So the home feature is by swiping up from the bottom of the screen. So that still gets you to the same place double tapping the home button does. But on the iPhone 10, without a home button, you swipe up from the bottom. So that's going to be a little bit different learning curve for people that aren't used to the way that home button feature works, because there is no home button anymore. All right. So the dock is kind of one of the biggest things that is available to you. And one of the neat things you can do, let me see, do I have, here's a website we had open. So I'm in Safari, and I don't want an ad. Go away, ad. Watch the first new episode of Inhumans. So one of the things you can do is multitasking, and this works especially good on the iPad Pro. So if I swipe up from the bottom, I see my dock, and I can grab an app and bring it over on top. And so now I can have two apps running at the same time. And so there's the message that Rick sent me earlier that Todd's going to be late. So I can see two different apps at the same time. So I could send a message to someone based on a website I'm seeing. And this works on the iPad and also on the Plus phones, because they have a big enough screen to do two apps at the same time. And I haven't got the hang of getting rid of that app yet. Come on. It's supposed to slide it off to the side to get rid of it. Come on. There. Get. That used to be, you pull that slot down at the top and it would let you change apps. But now you do that by pulling up at the bottom. And now I can drag the calendar app over there. And it's going to switch apps. But it's supposed to be just slide that off, and it's supposed to go away. I haven't quite got the hang of it, so I usually just hit the home button to make it go away. If you do have an iPad Pro, both of those windows are live at the same time. So it's not just looking at one while you're typing in another. Both windows are live at the same time. One of the biggest new features is the file. Go away, Google. Is the Files app that looks like a folder now. And the Files app is the beginning of access to the file system. So normally on your iPad, when you save a file, you're in Pages and you're doing a document, you save the file, it's saved in a folder on the iPad that you don't see. And you only see it when you're in Pages. And so say you want to send Pages to email, you have to use a button that says share this file to somebody else. Now the new Files app, you can see the files that are saved on your device. And one of the things that they've done, which is kind of nice, let me back up a couple of pages here, is normally you see your iCloud drive, and so those are the files you've saved on iCloud. So I can go into my Pages files and see the files I've created. The neat thing about it is it also links in with other cloud services. So here's my Google Drive, here's my Dropbox, and there are other services you can add into the Files app. So it's one app that lets you see all of your files on all your different services, which is pretty neat. So if I want to open this app, it's going to download it from the cloud, and it's going to let me see that app. This happens to be a calendar from the astronomy picture of the day, which was a neat app. And then I can use in the upper right corner, here I do this, in the upper right corner, you have this the share sheet, so I can then send that app to send that document to another app to do something else with it. They're generally all mirrored locally. Yeah, it saves it to the local iPad until you connect to the cloud, where it then can sync with the cloud service. But it does save your files locally when you're not connected to the network. Right. So if I go into my Pages folder, all those little icons that have the cloud on them are only on the cloud at the moment. As soon as I download one, we'll tap on that one. Now this one, for our rocket launch last year, this one is now on the iPad itself, so it has no cloud icon. So the little cloud icon is gone in the corner. So if I was disconnected from the... No. If I disconnect it from the cloud, I could still open that file because it's local to the device.
Say you have a file on the device, not in the cloud, can you drag it into that folder?
It depends if that service has been updated to support the Files app.
Say you have a PDF,
Mm-hmm.
okay, so can you drag that into the folder?
Where is that PDF?
On the device on the desktop.
Mm-hmm. There is no desktop.
Well, you can send an iPad, right?
Right. There's only the Files app, and you look on the Files app to get to the files.
So, but let's say you have a file on your iPad that's not in the folder yet.
It has to be. When you created the file, it had to be saved in a folder.
Well, I could have airdropped it from somewhere else. I didn't create it from the folder.
Right, and then you airdropped it into what program? And then that program saved it into files. So if you airdrop a PDF, it probably goes into the iBooks program unless you use a different PDF viewer.
But I airdropped a file to the other device with the file, not into a program.
The file has to go into a program so you can open it and view it.
Yeah, when you want to do that. But
Yeah.
you can put a file on say, Mac, on the computer and not open it.
Right, this is not a computer, this is an iPad.
Okay, so you can't do that.
There is no desktop. There is to have a file, you must have it in an application. We'll see more programs take advantage of files as we go. And since we're running out of time, we can do some more features later, at a later date. Where is Photos? The other big usage. No, I missed my Photos page. They added a bunch of stuff to the Photos app. There we are. So a lot of the changes are underneath. Some of them you don't notice. Some of them are built into other programs. So in the Photos app, you can now do live photos on more devices. So normally when you take a photo, it's just a still. Apple introduced a live photo option. I don't remember if I have any live photos. Let me see if this is a live photo. Nope. Live photos actually take a little bit of it's like a short video. It'll take a couple frames before, a couple frames after, and you get like a 1 second video. And so now I can swipe up to see my live effects. No, I got to swipe up on a picture. No, that wasn't it. I have to find a live photo first, which I don't know if I have any recent ones. Here, there's one I took. Nope. Yeah, so this that was a picture of the really bright rainbow that I saw the other day. All right, we'll skip that for the moment. So when I swipe up, I get a map of where that picture was. No, we don't see it because we're in photo mode. Because I'm because I'm mirroring photos, it's only showing me the one photo I'm on. There we go. There's a memories feature that automatically creates slideshows based on when photos were taken. And so I can tap on that, and now I've got a slideshow of those photos. And this was from a model air show. Bob, we joke about Bob taking his Fokker for a walk. This is a DR3 triplane. He's got a little rope that he pulls it with. And then it gives similar memories based on the location you are, based on the things you are. So I got a couple other airplane things. So here's one from the Geneseo Air Show. And I can actually hit the little play button. That's Whiskey 7, yep. No, that's that was the C-46 Commando. And so it's automatically playing a slideshow for me. There was the... Pardon? Music's automatic. You can manually create slideshows and transitions and music. Most people don't want to have to mess with that. Just hit the button, it does a slideshow. Which is, so this is Geneseo Air Show over the summer. And I'm going to stop and bring back the memories. And we'll go back to photos. Let me see. If I go to my albums, I might have an album of live photos. No, I don't. Sorry. I didn't think of that in time. If I take one here, I can... Somebody has to do something so I can take the photo. Yeah. All right, so now we should have a live photo, and that will... And that should make its way to the iPad. So we'll get to that in a moment. The other big thing in iOS 11 is they've added what's called AR-Kit for virtual reality. So, I'm sorry, not virtual reality, augmented reality. Aggravated reality, yeah. And so what that does is it mixes live action and program in the same scene. And one of the first ones that sort of has come out is from IKEA. And so what IKEA will do is it will let you, come on, see a video. So here we go. We've got a video of what's going on. And we're going to aim it at the floor so it knows where we are. Okay. And we need to move it around to find our stuff. So now it's looking at the stuff around. It found me. I need multiple yellow dots. There's a bunch of yellow dots, okay. So what it can do, and it's not going to do it, and we're running out of time. This worked this afternoon, I swear. You can then bring up the IKEA catalog, and there we got some dots, and put IKEA furniture in the live video scene. So you can see chairs and desks and cabinets in the live video scene. I wonder if the room is too big, it doesn't know what to do with it. I was in a smaller room this afternoon. Yeah, you can furnish your actual room to see what that chair would look like in your own living room. And it's a live video, and you can see how things would look. And it just doesn't want to work for me. Damn it. Sorry. And so we're seeing different demos. There's some game demos that have come out where you play a game on the tabletop, and the people around you can be playing the same game, and they see the same sort of tabletop thing superimposed on a real video feed. And so right now we're just seeing cool demos, but we'll start seeing more and more real applications to that as time goes on as well. So that looks like we're out of time again. Let me just make sure see if it's come down yet. Okay. No, it didn't work. I must have live pictures turned off. Live pictures are bigger because it's more than a single frame. It's multiple pictures. Did you take one, George? You should be able to AirPlay it to me. I think I've got AirPlay set to everybody. I'm sorry, not AirPlay, AirDrop. Yeah, so now IKEA is in my dock as a recent program. So the 3 most recent programs are in the dock, so you can jump between them quicker than needing to go find them again on the device. Well, Safari I've already got in permanently in the dock. So you drag, click, hold and drag to move things in and out of the dock. She removed it from her dock, so she has to find it, whatever page it's on, and put it back in the dock. No, the first 6 items are permanent in the dock. The last 3 are the recent ones. I've got all my radios on. It should be there. Oh, I have to change it to everyone. You're probably not in my contacts list here. I was at the Outdoor Fairport concert the other day, and someone kept sending me pictures on AirDrop, and I kept hollering, "It's a different Steve! Stop sending it to me!" because it was Steve's iPhone. That's the wrong Steve. Don't send it to me. I know I had one of Matthew in his we're out of time, from a while ago. Last summer, Matthew in a inflatable dinghy in a pool. And I'm not going to find it. They're working on better search tools. They're going to let you search for the content of a picture. So I can search for boat in a pool. Google does that now. Apple's going to be adding it as well. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. So Saturday from 12 to 2 is Sound Bites on Jazz 90.1 FM. You can call, get questions answered there. From 1 to 2:30 is Bob Hoey's Q&A meeting at his house. And then from 3 to 5 is the Q&A meeting at JCC for the rest of CIDER. And other than that, we'll see you all next week. Or next month, I guess. Board meeting next Wednesday if you're interested in seeing how the board works. Although that is a good idea, or a good way to get yourself added to the board.
It's just irresistible.
Just irresistible, yeah. No. I don't want to carry anything else.
Can I kill the power on this before I...
On the PA system, yeah.